Welcome to the Sci-Fi Continuum. I'm Stan, your narrator. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more stories. Escaping the High Matriarch's bedchamber was harder than invading a fortress. She had 6 arms, and at least 4 of them were always grabbing at Cassian Orell's waist. He had to use a decoy, a rhythmic vibrating massage bot, to distract her while he slid out from under the heavy silk sheets. As he pulled on his boots, he looked back at the slumbering giantess. She was beautiful, sure, but she was exhausted from trying to keep up with a human male's stamina. Humans were the apex of the galaxy, the shiny gold standard of strength and charisma. Sometimes Cassian wished he was just a little less magnetic. It would make his job as a diplomatic envoy much less tiring. He crept out onto the balcony and tapped his comms. "Pick me up now, before she wakes up and wants another round." His ship, the Indomitable, whispered through the atmosphere a few minutes later. As he climbed into the cockpit, his pilot cracked a smile. "Rough night, sir?" "The things I do for the Terran Dominion," Cassian sighed. He adjusted his leather jacket. "What's next on the schedule?" "A mercy pull, sir. Some fringe planet called Malcor. The tectonic plates are shifting. The whole place is going to be a lava lamp in 48 hours. We're helping the local species, the Xylans, evacuate to a colony ship." Cassian rubbed his jaw. "The Xylans? Fragile little things, aren't they?" "Yep. Most of the galaxy calls them glass people. Not much use to the Dominion. No real military, no high-tech exports. Just a routine trash pickup mission." Cassian nodded. He was a professional. He liked things clean and fast. He expected this to be a quick trip. He would land, look authoritative, let the Xylans pile into the shuttles, and be back in his own comfortable quarters by dinner. When they reached Malcor, the sky was a bruised shade of orange. Dust choked the air. The Zealand city was a mess of fleeing crowds. They were a humanoid species, elegant in their own way, but they lacked the raw, pulsing energy of a human. To them, Cassian was like a god descending from the stars. As he walked down the ramp of his shuttle, the Xylan leaders bowed so low their foreheads touched the cracked pavement. "Hurry it up," Cassian commanded. His voice carried that natural human authority. "The shuttles are on a timer. If it doesn't move, it doesn't fly." The evacuation was orderly, almost heartlessly so. The Xylans were focused on efficiency. They pushed the strong into the transport ships first. They loaded the scientists and the healthy workers. Cassian watched the line move, checking his chronometer. Then he saw her. She sat at the edge of the loading dock. She was in a mobility cradle, basically a wheelchair, a piece of old human tech provided by a charity years ago. It held her upright because her legs wouldn't. Her skin was a vibrant, electric purple that seemed to glow against the dull gray of the dying city. Long blonde hair fell over her shoulders. Her green eyes were fixed on the departing ships. She wasn't crying. She was just waiting. She wore a simple, light-colored tank top. The blue-purple hue of her shoulders was breathtakingly deep. She looked like a piece of living art left out in the rain. "Why isn't she on the manifest?" Cassian asked the Xylan captain. The captain didn't even look back. "That is Tylan. She is defective. Her body uses more resources than it provides. There is no room for the broken on the colony ship." Cassian felt a strange prickle in his chest. Usually he was a pragmatic man. Civilizations lived and died by their utility. That was the Terran way. "You're just going to leave her here?" "The survival of the many outweighs the one," the captain said. "It is the logical choice." "Is she a criminal?" Cassian asked. "Nope," the captain replied. "Is she contagious?" "Nope." "Then she goes on a ship." The captain shook his head. "None of our ships will take her. We have calculated the weight and the oxygen consumption. She is a burden we cannot afford." Cassian looked at Tylan. She turned her head then. Her green eyes met his. She didn't look at him with the usual lust or awe that most aliens showed humans. She looked at him with a quiet, sharp intelligence. She knew exactly what was happening. She knew she was being discarded like a piece of broken furniture. Cassian walked over to her. He stood 6'4", a wall of muscle and Terran confidence. He looked down at her. "Tylan?" "Yes," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "You want to stay here and watch the volcanoes?" She gave a slight, enigmatic smile. It was a beautiful expression, framed by the orange-red lipstick on her lips. "I don't think I have much of a choice, Envoy. My people have decided I am not worth the fuel." "Well," Cassian said, his voice dropping into a low growl. "Good thing I don't follow Xylan logic." He leaned down. He didn't ask permission. He reached under her purple knees and behind her back. He lifted her straight out of the mobility cradle. She was lighter than he expected, almost as if her bones were made of air. She gasped, her hands instinctively grabbing his leather jacket. Her skin felt warm. "What are you doing?" the Xylan captain shouted. "You are interfering with the protocol." Cassian didn't even turn his head. "I'm a human envoy. My protocol is whatever I say it is." He walked toward his own shuttle, carrying the purple-skinned girl in his arms. He could feel her heart racing against his chest. It was a fast, fluttering rhythm. "You don't have to do this," Tylan whispered. "I'm a burden. My legs don't work. I need medicine. I need care." "I have a very big ship," Cassian said, "and I'm very good at taking care of things I like." He carried her into the Indomitable. He didn't put her in the cargo hold. He took her straight to his personal quarters. The interior of the ship was a marvel of modern design. It was full of cool, metallic tones and bright, diffused light. White architectural curves framed the rooms, giving the space a sense of depth and luxury. He placed Tylan on his large, soft bed. She looked tiny against the dark sheets. "Stay here," he said. "I have to finish the evacuation. Then we're leaving." "Will you come back?" she asked. Cassian paused at the door. He looked at her blonde hair splayed out on his pillow. "Yep." The departure was loud. The ground beneath them cracked as the first of the lava flows broke through the crust. Cassian's ship soared into the blackness of space, leaving the dying world behind. He watched the Xylan colony ships head toward a distant hub. He didn't follow them. He set a course for the nearest Terran luxury station. When he returned to his quarters, he found Tylan trying to sit up. She had struggled to the edge of the bed. Her hands were clasped in her lap. She looked terrified, but she was trying to hide it behind that enigmatic smile. "I can help myself," she said quickly as he approached. "I usually manage my own hygiene. I just need a chair." "You don't need to struggle here," Cassian said. He sat on the edge of the bed. "My ship has an automated medical suite. It can craft whatever brace or chair you need. But for now, just relax." He reached out and brushed a strand of blonde hair from her face. Her purple skin was vibrant under the ship's lights. He felt a surge of protectiveness that he had never felt for any of his previous lovers. Those had been games of conquest. This felt different. "Why did you take me?" she asked. "I saw the way the others looked at you. You could have any woman in the sector. Why the sickly one?" "You're not sickly," Cassian said. "You're just fragile. There's a difference. And honestly, I liked your smile. It looked like you were keeping a secret." Tylan laughed softly. "The secret is that I spent my whole life being told I was a waste of space. It's funny to see a human go to such effort to care for me." Over the next few days, the dynamic between them shifted. Tylan's facade of resignation began to break. She was incredibly smart. She started helping Cassian with his diplomatic reports, fixing his messy data entries with a keen eye for detail. She was funny, too. She had a dry, biting wit that kept him on his toes. Cassian found himself spending all his time in his quarters. He liked the way she looked in the light-colored tank tops he ordered for her. He liked the way her green eyes lit up when they argued about galactic trade routes. One evening, they were sitting in the lounge area of his cabin. The stars moved past the large observation window. Cassian had prepared a meal for them, real Terran steak and wine. He had lifted her from the bed to the reclining chair by the window. "You're looking better," he said, watching her. The purple of her skin seemed even more electric now that she was being fed proper human nutrients. "I feel better," she admitted. "For the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm waiting to die. It's a strange feeling." "Get used to it," Cassian said. He moved his chair closer to hers. He reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were long and delicate. She didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand. "Cassian?" "Yeah?" "I know what humans are like," she said, her voice dropping. "I know how your species is admired. I never thought anyone would look at me that way. Especially not a man like you." Cassian leaned in. He could see the slight tremor in her lips. "A man like me? What does that mean?" "Strong, bold, dangerous," she said. "I'm only dangerous to people who try to take what's mine," he said. He leaned closer, his chest inches from hers. "And I think you're mine now, Tylan." She didn't say anything. She just leaned forward, closing the gap. When their lips met, it wasn't the frantic, hungry kiss Cassian was used to. It was soft. It was cautious. Tylan tasted like the sweet fruit she had been eating earlier. She let out a small, shaky breath into his mouth. Cassian stood up and slowly lifted her into his arms. He carried her back to the bed. He moved with extreme care. He knew her body was delicate. Her legs didn't function, but that didn't matter to him. He laid her down on the silk sheets. The contrast of her purple skin against the white mattress was stunning. He began to undress her, his movements slow and deliberate. He wanted her to feel every touch. He wanted her to know she was desired, not just as a charity case, but as a woman. When he stripped off his own clothes, Tylan's eyes widened. She stared at the topography of his muscles, the scars on his chest from a dozen battles. She reached out with a trembling hand and traced the line of his shoulder. "You're so powerful," she whispered. "I'll be gentle," he promised. He hovered over her, supporting his weight on his forearms so he wouldn't crush her. He kissed her neck, her shoulders, and the soft purple skin of her belly. Tylan arched her back, her blonde hair spreading out like a halo. She couldn't move her legs to wrap them around him, so he positioned them carefully, draping them over his hips with a tenderness that shocked even him. He entered her slowly. He watched her face, looking for any sign of pain. But there was no pain, only a deep, resonant gasping of air. Her green eyes were flooded with emotion. She gripped his biceps, her nails digging slightly into his skin. The heat between them built. It was a rhythmic, pulsing connection. Cassian kept his movements steady and careful. He focused on her pleasure, watching her skin turn a deeper, darker shade of violet as her excitement peaked. She was so responsive, so alive in his arms. When she finally cried out, her body tensed and then slumped back into the pillows. Cassian followed her shortly after, his own release a powerful surge that left him breathless. He didn't pull away immediately. He stayed there, holding her, his head tucked into the crook of her neck. He felt her hands stroking his hair. "Nobody has ever touched me like that," she whispered. "Nobody even wanted to touch me." "They were idiots," Cassian said. He rolled onto his side, pulling her against him. "What happens now?" she asked. "We'll reach the station soon. You have more missions, more important people to visit." "Nope," Cassian said. Tylan looked up at him. "Nope? I'm putting in for a permanent assignment," he said. "The Terran government owes me a few favors." There's a beautiful garden world in the inner rim, highly classified, very safe. It has the best medical facilities in the galaxy. You would go there for me? I'm going there for us, Cassian corrected. I'm tired of jumping from bed to bed, Tylen. I think I'd rather spend my time helping a certain purple-skinned genius run a diplomatic office. Tylen smiled, and this time there was no enigma in it. It was pure, radiant joy. She leaned her head against his chest, listening to the steady, powerful thrum of his human heart. I think I'd like that, she said. The ship continued its journey through the stars. Outside, the galaxy was vast and often cold, but inside the metallic walls of the Indomitable, in the warm glow of the modern lights, things were perfect. Cassian held her tight. He had spent his life being a hero for the Dominion, but as he looked at the woman in his arms, he realized this was the only mission that truly mattered. He had carried her off a dying world, and he intended to carry her for as long as she would let him. The journey was long and the future was bright. Tylen fell asleep in his arms, her blonde hair tangled with his. The purple girl who was meant to be left behind was exactly where she belonged, center stage in the life of the most powerful man she had ever met. And as the Indomitable jumped into hyperspace, the only sound in the room was the steady, synchronized breathing of two lovers who had found something far more valuable than conquest. They had found home. 1 year later, the garden world felt less like a refuge and more like destiny fulfilled. The air was warm, the skies impossibly blue, and the quiet hum of life replaced the chaos they had left behind. Tylen no longer looked fragile. She glowed with a strength that had nothing to do with her body. Cassian stood beside her, one arm steady at her back as she held their newborn child. The baby's skin shimmered faintly, a perfect blend of human vitality and Xylan brilliance. You were never a burden, he murmured. Tylen smiled down at their child. No, she said softly. I was just waiting. Expanded and exclusive Sci-Fi Continuum stories are available as ebooks. Links in the description.